just wanted to say a quick hello to everyone. I'm here at the Ontario airport. You may recognize the background or the sound you'll hear. I wish I could be there in person, but I'm going to watch for as long as I can until I have to board my flight. And I'm so excited. Love this event. I want to say thanks to the faculty and staff who helped to put it on this year. And congratulations already, I'll say, to the students who are participating. Can't wait to see the presentations. This is one of the best events of the year that we do. And I'm excited to see the pitches this year. So welcome, everyone. Thanks, Marcus, for letting me say hello. And can't wait. Let's go.
Okay, well, hard to follow up the president, but I'm giving you my welcome to everyone. And thank you for attending our second annual Big Pitch competition at CGU. I'm Diane Chase. I'm Vice President for Academic Innovation, Student Success, and Strategic Initiatives. I first participated in the 3-minute thesis competitions 5 years ago as a judge. And at that point, I was hooked on the value of the 3MT. It's a great way to hear about graduate student research, and it's also an amazing opportunity for students to hone communication skills. I'm really thrilled that we were able to bring the 3MT to CGU, and glad that all of you are here to experience this with us. I want to send a special thank you to Mohanad Malis, who's from our CGU Board of Trustees, whose generous support has helped us make this event possible. But before we go any further, I'd like to introduce my co-MC for today's event, President of CGU's Graduate Student Council, Arlene Vartruba. Arlene?
Thank you. Hello, CGU scholars. My name is Arlene Vartruba, and I am serving as the President of Graduate Student Council this year. Also, you may recognize me from the Center for Writing and Rhetoric. It is my pleasure to be here to co-MC the second annual CGU Big Pitch competition. Thank you, Diane. And I'm stoked to help get this competition started together today. Thank you to everyone who helped to make this event possible. The CWR director, Marcus Weekly, and my colleague, Stacy Park, have invested hours behind the scenes to make today's event a success. So thank you for doing all of that work in advance. Additionally, I would like to acknowledge the work of all of the students who participated in the preliminary round of this year's competition. It is truly inspiring to see the work that CGU scholars are doing. Each of you showed up and presented your transformational projects, and I'm sure it was really challenging for the preliminary round judges to narrow down the pool to only 6 finalists. Congratulations to all of you, and we hope to see you back again at next year's competition. Finally, congratulations to our 6 finalists today. Good luck.
Thank you, Arlene. Before we get to the finalist presentations, let's give some brief background and introduce our judges. So the Big Pitch is CGU's version of the 3-minute thesis competition. This is an international event that began in 2008 at the University of Queensland. The 3MTs are now held at over 900 universities in more than 85 countries. The basic format is always the same. Students have 3 minutes only, and you're going to be seeing a clock on the screen when they present, and a single slide to present their graduate work to a non-specialist audience.
This is CGU's second year doing our 3MT, and our version is open to students at any stage in their degree program from any department, and students can compete multiple times over their years at CGU. And we're happy to announce that our winner will have the opportunity to represent CGU at the regional 3MT competition early next year, put on by the Western Association of Graduate Schools.
In brief, the guidelines for today are that participants will present their pitch live through Zoom. Slides will be shown using Zoom screen share. And then we'll have a period of time where the judges panel, made up of faculty, staff, and alumni, will judge using a rubric based on comprehension and content, as well as engagement and communication. And keep in mind, all of you will be able to vote as well. There is an Audience Choice Award. So now let's introduce today's judges.
Today, our judges include Gregory D'Angelo, the Associate Professor of Economic Sciences and Director of the Computational Justice Lab. D'Angelo works closely with public sector agencies to address pressing questions of criminal justice policy, identifying the causal effects of actions by both legal and extra-legal actors on public safety. His research ranges from the identification of the effect of judicial and prosecutorial incentives on the outcomes of criminal cases to the impact of law enforcement strategies on human trafficking. At the core of his work is a desire to advance criminal justice reform by identifying the causal impacts of policies, incentives, and actions by legal and extra-legal actors on public safety, and then generating technologies with the potential to counteract any negative externalities of these actions. Additionally, we have Shamini Diaz, Director of Preparing Future Faculty. Diaz is an alumna of CGU and holds a PhD in education. Her work as a teacher scholar focuses on integrating ideas from complexity science to explore imagination as a creative, adaptive capacity and a critical aspect of human development and leadership. Her research locates teaching and learning in constantly changing, diverse, and interconnected contexts that define life today. She brings this research into the PFF program to help graduate students develop identities as inclusive teachers who strive for educational equity for all learners. Diaz's first 2 degrees were in linguistics and English literature. Prior to her role at CGU, she had a long career teaching English literature, academic writing, creative writing, and drama, pedagogy, and communication skills at multiple levels from K through 12 through post-secondary settings.
Patricia Easton is our Executive Vice President and Provost. As a professor and researcher, Easton specializes in the history of modern philosophy, particularly the philosophy of René Descartes and the Cartesians of the 17th century. Her interests also include the philosophy of mind, the history of science, and the history of philosophy. Easton teaches courses and seminars in early modern philosophy, as well as transdisciplinary courses. She received her bachelor's degree in psychology and philosophy from Glendon College, York University, and her master's and PhD in philosophy from the University of Western Ontario. She's received numerous awards from the Getty Foundation, the CGS Ford Foundation, and the Mellon Foundation, among others. Kim, is the principal and co-founder of Talent Scope Consulting, a Southern California-based talent acquisition and organizational coaching firm that helps small to mid-sized business owners hire right and make strengths productive so they can ultimately perform better. After spending more than a decade providing management consulting and executive coaching for entrepreneurs and family-owned businesses, Kim has found that achieving more of one's potential depends greatly on our ability to focus and develop the right habits. Facilitating the process of helping his clients better focus on the right things in the right way and in ways that help them fulfill a vision they're passionate about has become his calling and among the greatest joys in life. Kim earned his bachelor's degree in economics at UC Berkeley and holds an executive MBA and an MA in advanced management from the Drucker School of Management.
Our final judge is Andrew Vosco, Associate Provost and Director of Transdisciplinary Studies. Vosco earned his BS from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, with a dual concentration in Japanese language and literature and biopsychology and cognitive science. Vosco earned his PhD in neuroscience from the University of California, Los Angeles, where he trained in the Laboratory of Circadian and Sleep Medicine, Laboratory of Neuroendocrinology, and the Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities Research Center. His current research interests include biomedical, interprofessional, and transdisciplinary education, medical humanities, gender and sexual minority healthcare, and biobehavioral sleep medicine. He has received research grants from the National Institutes of Health and the Arnold P. Gold Foundation. Before we begin the exciting portion of this event, listening to the participant pitches, I want to provide the audience with some logistical support to improve your viewing experience. In the top right corner of your screen, click on the button that reads View and select Speaker View to have a better view of the current speaker throughout the following presentations. Additionally, you will notice that your screen is split between the shared view of the PowerPoint presentation and the participant speaker boxes. There is an adjustable divide separating the shared screen and speakers. There are 2 vertical lines that show up when you hover over the screen. Click on that divider and drag it to the left. And you are able to adjust the screen so that you can have a split view of the PowerPoint slide and speaker during the presentations. We recommend placing it in the middle so your screen is divided evenly between the slide and the speaker. Finally, to maintain fairness, the order of pitch presentations has been determined based on alphabetical order by the last name of each participant. All right, Diane, tell us about our first participant.
Rocky Blessy Bragg is a 7th-year English teacher at Etiwanda High School. In his time there, he's worked with grades 9 to 12, honors and AP, and previously served as a long and triple jump coach on the track and field team for 5 years with standout CIF and state athletes. Blessy Bragg considers teaching the best job in the world and doesn't know what he would be if it were not a teacher. He received a bachelor's degree in English from the University of Laverne, as well as an MA in education. Currently, he's an ABD PhD student in the CGU School of Education. He considers himself a very lucky husband and is welcoming his first child in March. When he's not working, which can be very difficult for him to put aside, he's training and coaching Olympic weightlifting, playing with his cat, Cyrano, or reading. His pitch is titled, Preparing Educators for Dimensions of Diversity in Times of Crisis.
I've never felt as alone as I felt following that infamous day of March 13th, 2020. COVID-19 upended everything, everywhere. Teachers were asked to digitalize their courses over a weekend and prepare for students. Students were asked to learn despite being without technology, traditional lunches, friends, their teachers, family, broadly without assurance that they and their loved ones would be okay. COVID-19 facilitated a setting where educators got a glimpse into the lives of many of their students. Of course, only when they went on mute or turned their cameras on. So as an educator, how do we engage diverse groups of students who come to us with diverse levels of readiness, economic circumstances, culture, some who had to go to work to help their families, who did not have adequate access to technology, the only means through which they could learn in this distance learning setting, who quickly lost motivation and gave up because they felt alone and without? What do we educators do when COVID-19 makes very clear what is and is not a priority? I asked 6 high school teachers from Chaffee Joint Union High School District and 8 teacher education professionals from California what pedagogical strategies they employ to engage these students still. I felt that this period of time may illuminate not just how teachers respond in times of crises, but ordinarily to student needs. First and foremost, educators need institutional support. While both groups felt that they needed to be more flexible because of the special circumstances, flexibility only goes so far if schools don't equip students with adequate access to technology and internet service. Aside from that, participants identified 2 key umbrellas, the science of teaching and the art. Cultural and readiness challenges are multidimensional, but educators in this group experience success in traditional and distance learning settings by varying instruction, effectively using visuals, and demonstrating flexibility with how we present information and how students demonstrate their knowledge of it. In essence, the science of teaching. But most salient from all the interviews was this idea of building relationships. Traditionally, rapport is not the easiest to establish. Add in the challenges of distance learning, the ease of muting oneself for an entire year and never saying a word, the ease with which we may forget we've not heard from them. Overwhelmingly, participants expressed a critical need to build relationships with students because students need to know that they're cared for, that they bring valuable capital to the table that can be leveraged in class. Some of my educators made one-on-ones part of their course expectations. Some began every class with non-academic classroom engagers to bring students in and hopefully bring down their walls. Some from my teacher ed group leaned on their students' tech savviness to inspire new ideas and cultivate this symbiotic relationship. However we plan to do it, students need to know we care. Good teaching is good teaching, in and outside of a pandemic. We learn more from each other when there's an exchange of practice and experience so that neither teachers nor students have to be without.
Up next, we have Rebekah Call. Rebekah Call is a doctoral candidate pursuing a PhD in religious studies, critical comparative scripture, Her main emphasis is Hebrew Bible with a secondary emphasis in Mormon studies. Other research interests include women in the Hebrew Bible, new religious movements in America, and gender studies. Her dissertation focuses on the phrase Ezer Kenegdo, King James Version, help meet, in Genesis 2:18. Call has an MA in the Bible and its world from the Rothberg International School of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and a BA in English Linguistics from Brigham Young University. Her pitch is titled Ezer Kenegdo, neither helpful nor sufficient.
All right. He can see you. He can see me. There's a joke that goes like this. If a man hits a woman with his car, whose fault is it? The man's, because he shouldn't have been driving in the kitchen. This is an example of a kitchen joke, which centers around the idea that a woman's place is only in the home, not in a career or having any public influence or authority. Such jokes reflect elements of a cultural view of gender roles that developed from traditional Judeo-Christian interpretations of the Bible. In the creation narrative found in the first book of the Bible, Genesis, it says that God created a single human, usually interpreted to be male. And then the deity says, in the King James translation, it is not good for the man to be alone. Let us make a help meet for him. Help meet, defining woman. The meet of help meet meant sufficient in early modern English. This phrase, help meet or help sufficient for, is translated from the Hebrew ezer kenegdo, which has been used for millennia as a touchstone for defining gender roles. Prevailing interpretations of ezer kenegdo historically have viewed women as being lesser and innately evil, thereby justifying male domination of the weaker sex. It is only roughly within the last century that scholars have seriously considered alternate interpretations. However, even with new interpretations, we have a serious problem. Scholars have paid more attention to tradition than to the actual words of the text. The Hebrew for the phrase, ezer kenegdo, is linguistically strange, but scholars only mention its abnormality in passing. No scholar to date has conducted a rigorous linguistic study to create an accurate base for interpretation. Thus, traditional translations and interpretations are neither helpful nor sufficient. And that is what my dissertation aims to remedy. I have examined every occurrence of both roots in the Hebrew Bible and have identified contextual themes connected to these words, which I'm applying to the Genesis account to better understand the nuances of ezer kenegdo. And what I'm finding is that this phrase has nothing to do with whether one gender should be subordinate or in which sphere women should belong. Rather, this phrase touches at the heart of human interpersonal relationships, what it means to be vulnerable, when and why we become defensive, and how conflict can be constructive rather than destructive. I have discovered that in the text, when this type of help is present, there is massive success. Everything works. But when this type of help is not present, there's tragic failure. Nothing works. In short, the actual conversation in the Hebrew Bible does not even fit within our cultural ideology of gender roles. Rather, this conversation centers around building blocks of healthy interpersonal relationships in which men and women are both fully powerful and influential, with no need to compete for authority. This fuller understanding of ezer kenegdo is a healthier foundation, and as such is both helpful and. Thank you.
David Calamine is an information systems and technology PhD student currently researching privacy-related topics. Calamine's areas of research include information privacy, cybersecurity, decentralized technologies, peer-to-peer networking, and sustainable computing. He holds MA in IST from CGU, an MA in Economics from CSULA, and a BS in Environmental Sciences from UC Riverside. He will be presenting his work on privacy and technology at the upcoming 2021 ICIS conference. His pitch is titled Privacy and Technology.
I'm kidding. The audio is good. No need to adjust it. So today I wanted to talk to you about one of the most important questions posed, I'd say, in the last 50 years. Now, I first heard the question when I was a kid, and I heard it often, and I always got the same sort of disappointing response. Now, when you hear the same information repeated often enough by trusted adults or cartoon owls, you do tend to believe it, but it never really truly satisfied my curiosity. So of course, the question I'm talking about is how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? Now, if you're not familiar with this particular ad or candy, a Tootsie Pop is sort of a hard candy lollipop with a soft Tootsie Core center. Obviously, the creators intended it to be a metaphor for our internal and external selves, with that hard candy shell being the dividing line between information that we choose to share with the world and that information that we don't. Now, the ability to make that choice is an exercise in privacy, the second topic of my research behind candy. So privacy is a widely researched topic across fields. And one area of agreement is that it's always evolving and changing. Much like that sort of privacy placemat, the green picture at the top of the screen, the longer you stare at it, the more it appears to move around. Now, as difficult as privacy is to pin down in a research setting, it's very easy to talk about conversationally. For example, when Google Streetcars started driving around taking pictures of everybody on their lawn in their bathrobe, it's not hard to understand why some people were put off by this. Same thing with drones flying overhead or any other technology that you want to insert. Now, compounding this problem is that the area for choice is diminishing, as technologies can now even detect information about individuals that they might not be aware of themselves. So we really need to have frameworks that engage potential futures, and that's the goal of my research. Now, most existing IS privacy research centers around individuals and their decision-making, and my proposed framework focuses on the relative distribution of information decision rights amongst corporations and platforms, individuals, and governments. So what the heck does that mean? Well, picture any technology and ask yourself who gets to decide what happens with the information that it both collects and creates. So by transitioning to frameworks that deal with these larger incentives in place and the distribution of decision rights, we can look at the ways that technologies affect the dynamics both within these groups and between them. Much like if you look at one of the circles in the lower right, the other sort of circles appear to move in response. Now, framing it in this manner also allows us to integrate important related concepts like anonymity, surveillance, and secrecy, and it allows us to evaluate new technology before it's deployed in the hopes of ensuring that these privacy decision rights are socially negotiated. Now, hopefully that sounds interesting to you, but if it doesn't, that's fine. Just know that it takes 3 licks to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop. Thanks.
Our next presenter, Robert Marone, is a PhD candidate at the Center for Information Systems and Technology at CGU. He has worked in the pharmaceutical industry for many years in various IT management roles, as well as quality engineering roles at companies including Kite Pharma, Worldwide Clinical Trials, and ClinLogic. Currently, he is CIO at CenXL Research, a drug study investigative site network. Marone holds a MS in the Management of Technology from the Georgia Institute of Technology and a BS from California State University, Long Beach. His research field of interest is data analytics and data quality. His pitch is titled Data Analytic Capability Maturity Model for Small and Medium Enterprises.
Imagine you believe you're in good health. Things are going great for you in your life when you get the devastating news that you have stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. But then you find out a new treatment called CAR-T therapy could save your life. As the diagram on the top of my slide shows, a new drug company will collect your blood, isolate your T cells, engineer your T cells, grow back new cells, and infuse the blood back in your body. And this saves your life. Amazing. But that's just the science. What about the data associated with this process to make sure the science works? Well, this drug company needed to establish a data analytics program to ensure that the data associated with their CAR-T process could be collected, managed, interpreted, and utilized so that you, the patient, could get back that proper life-saving treatment. So how do we establish such an important program at a company? Well, first, we need to have a good understanding of what the program entails, the dimensions or the capabilities of the program. And we need to understand where to start and where to end up, the stages of growth towards maturity. I have researched and worked on a model for this purpose called the Data Analytics Capability Maturity Model for Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises. Let's call it DOCM for short. This model has the dimensions that help that drug company, for example, organize its data analytics strategy, set up its technical infrastructure, and manage its data as it grows ever larger. And so what does a DOCM look like? Well, it's the colorful model you see on the left side of the screen, and it has 7 elements that are each developed to help develop a data analytics program. This model helped the drug company, for example, understand that it was on the correct path towards maturity as it went through stages or steps of growth from nascent to more mature as the program developed. There are other data maturity models, but I believe DOCM is unique in the way it covers and handles the relationship between dimensions. For example, it helped the drug company set up a data management process that ensured that quality issues associated with their CAR-T process that I spoke about earlier could be made visible to management. So when we hear about groundbreaking therapies like CAR-T therapy, the data behind the therapy does not always come to mind, but it is integral to the process that may save a patient's life. Now I'm working to generalize DOCM so that other companies can benefit from a successful data analytics program that may be behind the next big life-saving therapy. Thank you.
Tyler Chaplin is a PhD candidate in applied cognitive psychology at Claremont Graduate University. His research interests include memory, metacognition, and suggestibility, and he conducts research in Kathy Pesdick's applied cognitive psychology lab as a graduate research assistant. He completed his undergraduate education at California State University, Northridge, where he worked on deception detection research. After receiving his bachelor's degree in psychology, he then completed an MA in applied cognitive psychology at CGU and has begun working on his dissertation research involving misinformation and personality traits. Outside of school, he spends his time tinkering with technology, studying the stock market, and playing video games. His pitch is titled, Misinformation, How Robust Is It?
Misinformation refers to false, inaccurate, or misleading information. The term misinformation has become far more common in our everyday lives given the recent political climate, especially when considering the COVID-19 pandemic that continues to affect all of us. Based on previous research, misinformation is relatively well understood in the domains of news and social media, where information can vary greatly over time. However, this leads me to my research question. How robust is misinformation against information that is unlikely to vary over time? One example of information that is unlikely to vary over time is our personality traits. In the literature, personality traits are found to be consistent and stable over long periods of time. In my study, the personality trait of interest was dissociation. Dissociation is defined as a disconnectedness from oneself, such as out-of-body experiences, thinking disruptions, and so on. Dissociation is a less well-known personality trait compared to other personality traits such as happiness, anger, or anxiety, which means that one's memory for events related to dissociation are inherently less plausible. Because dissociation-related events are inherently less plausible, it should be more difficult to influence someone with misinformation to believe that they are more dissociated than they actually are, since that information is less likely to be familiar to them. In my study, participants took the Dissociative Experiences Scale, a clinically approved and widely used trait dissociation scale. This scale was given at 2 separate time points where participants were either given no misinformation, which was the control group, or misinformation that suggested they were more dissociated than they actually were. This misinformation was given after the participants had completed the scale at time 1, so we already had a baseline score for every participant first. If you take a look at the blue bars on the graph, you will notice that those in the misinformation condition had a significant change in their trait dissociation score from time 1 to time 2, higher scores indicating more dissociation. These participant scores changed so much that they went from being in one clinically dissociative category to another, as can be seen by comparing the T1 blue bar score and the T2 blue bar score with the table that you can see on the right. So what did these results tell us? Let's consider 2 key takeaways. First, at a more general level, it seems that misinformation is far more robust than we have previously seen, affecting information that is supposed to remain relatively stable and consistent over long periods of time. Second, in a real-world setting, the effect of misinformation on clinical scales means that therapists and psychiatrists who might be administering these scales must be incredibly careful not to bias the patient in either way. In considering these interpretations, it's critical to understand that misinformation can affect how our personality traits are reflected under specific conditions, ultimately extending the scope of how dangerous misinformation can be. Thank you.
Jessica Wong is an MBA candidate in the Drucker Management School Flex MBA program. Her primary business goals are to upend traditional power systems and build equitable business structures and practices. She is the Chief Operating Officer and Senior Business Consultant for Kairos Partners, LLC, an IT consulting firm. She has over a decade of experience launching startups and creating IT environments for small to medium-sized organizations. Outside of the business world, Wong is the executive director of a nonprofit in Pasadena that provides mentorship to under-resourced children and youth. Wong received her bachelor's from the University of California, Los Angeles, and lives in Pasadena, California. Her pitch is titled Information Technology Business for Social Good.
Imagine you're a small business owner. You realize that you need a technology platform that'll integrate your company's financials, client data, and company operations, all while taking into account cybersecurity and the potential growth of your company. Talk about overwhelming. Who are you going to call? Ghostbusters! Oh, sorry, got carried away there. I launched my full-service IT company in 2019. We handle everything IT, from being a company's outsourced help desk to acting as their engineering department. While we were able to grow and gain clients, we never felt satisfied about the work that we were doing. You can only tell a client so many times to just reboot their computer before you really start questioning your life's choices. One of my courses at Drucker has centered around the steps and frameworks to either building a new company or pivoting an existing one. While evaluating my company's core business, what became clear in our research was that access to strategic technology resources is a growing area of inequity. While most small companies had basic computer maintenance services, many lacked the financial resources and knowledge of how to access business-oriented technology advice. As you can see in the slide, in California, there are over 4 million of these small businesses, of fewer than 20 employees making on average $100,000 a year. Our company decided to take the unique strategy of focusing on this underserved small business sector. Instead of needing to add a full-time employee on their payroll, small companies could hire us on a fractional basis to serve as their internal technology executive. We work to understand their staff, their culture, processes, and partner with them to operate effectively at the intersection of people, process, and technology. This was a mission we could be excited about, not only addressing a gap in the market, but leveraging our expertise to address inequity through business. Let me end with a story. We had just been hired as the fractional technology executive of a small county mental health organization right before COVID lockdowns began. This company that had 0 work from home technologies in place all of a sudden needed to stop all in-person activities. With our help, they were able to set up all their services remotely within a week, one of the first county agencies to do so. Not only were they able to continue providing crucial mental health services during the global pandemic, but their remote services became so efficient, they were even able to expand services by 30% within just a few months. Peter Drucker summarizes it best. Leaders in every sector have 2 responsibilities. They are responsible and accountable for the performance of their own institutions. They are responsible also, however, for the community as a whole. Social responsibility objectives need to be built into the strategy of a business rather than merely be statements of good intentions. Thank you.
As we wait for our judges' scores to be tallied, it's now everyone's opportunity to vote for our audience's winner. You should see a poll on your screen momentarily, and everyone is allowed a single vote. So please vote right away and then stick with us. We're going to have about a 4-minute musical interlude to allow time for the judges to complete their voting, and then we'll be right back. So again, please take the time to vote for the audience's choice winner and stay tuned. While we wait for the scores to be finalized, I'd like to acknowledge the preliminary round judges who dedicated their time to watch and score all of this year's participants. Jacob Baron, Assistant Director of Financial Aid, and David Estudiante, Associate Director of Retention and Engagement. Daryl Moore, Visiting Associate Professor of Cultural Studies, and Michelle Ponce, Director of Career Development. I would also like to thank the event organizers, Marcus Weekly, Director for the Center of Writing and Rhetoric, and Stacy Park, a writing consultant with an English PhD student, who've been working behind the scenes today and before to try and make sure that this would go through smoothly. Thanks to all for your contributions to this year's Big Pitch. Having been a finalist, having been a judge myself, I know how tough it can be to make these decisions. All of you have seen our great finalists, and so I'm sure you can empathize. While we're waiting, I thought perhaps Arlene might be able to pipe in for us. She was one of the Big Pitch presenters last year. Arlene, would you tell us a little bit about what that experience meant to you, how you feel about it in retrospect?
Sure, Diane. Thank you for asking. And I am sure that everyone has a different experience with the Big Pitch, because for some people, public speaking is really natural, and for others, it's really anxiety producing. And last year was really unique because everything was pre-recorded, both during the preliminary and final stage. I was not a finalist last year, but that's okay. I think that the opportunity helped me to learn more about presenting and learn more about how to engage a generalized audience with my research in a way that I could connect with them. So I think it was really cool because it gave me a chance to think about how to translate what I'm doing, like in my office by myself, immersed in my work all the time, with a larger audience, and trying to make it important to them, matter to them, and interesting, which I think today, watching the presentations, I learned a few tricks.
One of the things I would say, having watched these for a number of years now, is that students get better each time they try. So Arlene and I have had a conversation yesterday about the fact that she needs to get back on the horse, and we want to see her in here next year.
definitely a good opportunity, and I sure will. Right now I'm focusing on my qualifying exams, but I'm sure I'll be closer to my dissertation work at that point and have the chance to kind of put my skills to the test once again.
While we're waiting, are any of the finalists wanting to say something about the experience now that you're no longer on screen with the 3-minute timer? You're just happy to be sitting back, huh?
They're all just catching their breath.
I would be happy to pitch in a little something.
Sounds good. Go for it.
So I was on the fence about even applying to begin with, but I decided to go ahead and do it. And I'm really glad I did, especially because I'm hoping to defend my dissertation within the next year. So I'm also applying for jobs for the fall, and really boiling this down so that I've got a pitch like for conferences, for interviews, was really, really helpful, and realizing that I've got to be able to talk to a non-specialist audience, because I may be working in a religious studies department, but that doesn't mean that everyone does Hebrew Bible. So I thought it was really, really transferable skills just for presenting, for job opportunities, interviews. So in the end, I knew that regardless of whether I made it to the finals, it was still worth it because of what I learned from the experience.
Thank you for sharing, Rebekah. Did you go to any of the sessions at the Writing Center?
I did not make it to the live sessions, but I did watch all of the videos afterward, which I found to be quite helpful.
Cool. Okay, I think our scores are coming in now. Let me tell you first that all finalists receive a $150 prize for making it this far. So now let's start with the audience choice winner. Drum roll, please. And that would be Tyler. Congratulations, Tyler, audience choice winner. Arlene, do you want to take over from here?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And congratulations, Tyler, on that. Up next, in third place with a $250 prize, we have Rocky. Rocky Blessy Bragg.
And in second place, we have Tyler. So Tyler won second place. Congratulations.
And now the moment you've all been waiting for. Without further ado, our first place winner with the prize of $1,000 is Rebekah. Congratulations. Cue the parade, fireworks everywhere. Good job. Once again, congratulations to everyone. Rebekah Call, congrats for first place this year. And I just want to say great work to everyone. Thank you all for your contributions this year. It's been an amazing event.
Yep. My thanks as well. Thanks for sticking with us. Sorry it took us so long to get those votes in, but as you can see, it really was a tough call. Congratulations to all our winners, to all the finalists, and we look forward to seeing you again next year. Check in on the website and see how our finalists do in subsequent competitions. Thank you.
Thank you and congratulations.